All right, so we are doing lesson 13, code.org, unit 3, CS discoveries. All right, so the class is going to continue to explore ways to use conditional statements to take user input. In addition to the simple key down command, we're going to do a lot of these yellow ones now. Last time we just did the key down. We're going to learn new ones and several different ones that we can test out. Okay, so go ahead and press continue. So with this one, it says if else predict. So read through the following program, paying close attention to the if else block on line 10. After discussing the following questions with your partner, write down your predictions and run the code to see what the program does. So what happens when you press the space bar and what happens when you don't press the space bar? So both things we're taking a look at. So we're going to look at this if block on line 10, and it says if key down space. What does that mean? Yeah, when you press the space bar, it says balloon.scale equals balloon.scale plus 0.02. So it's going to get bigger if we press the space bar, and then it says else balloon.scale equals balloon.scale minus 0.02. So if I'm not pressing the space bar, then what's going to happen? It gets smaller. Okay, so go ahead and write that in your thing there. Okay, and then press run. Okay, so that's what's going to happen while we are dealing with this code here. So if the spacebar is being pressed down, the balloon scale is going to go to 0, or it's going to get bigger, else it's going to get smaller. Okay? We're going to skip past this video just for the sake of time. All right. So this one, we've got this swarm of bees, okay, that's going to come over by this flower. So it says when to provide an else. So the else clause is useful when you want the program to do one thing when your condition is true and a different thing when the condition is false. So we're going to click run to see the swarm of bees created for you and a flower on the left side of the screen. Make the swarm of bees appear when the mouse is near the flower or on the left side of the screen. Okay, and then disappear when the mouse is away from the flower or on the right side of the screen. It says look at the example on the right. So over here they've got their mouse and then they move it across the screen, and as soon as they're by the flower, anywhere over here the bees appear and then they start to swarm. So it says add an if else statement after you update the position of the bees. So I'm going to scroll down in my workspace here, and this is where I'm updating the position of the bees. Okay, so what I want to do is I'm going to go to my control tab and I'm going to add in an if else underneath this stuff here. Okay, it says in the input of the if, use a boolean to check if the x position of the mouse is on the side of the screen with the flower. Okay, so I need to do some sort of comparison, right? So I'm going to need to do some sort of math, either like is it greater than, is it equal to, is it less than, something like that. So what would I do to compare? How would I do this? What do we think? Okay, I need to check and see if my mouse is on the left side of the screen. So I'm dealing with what variable, x or y? X, right? And the left side of the screen, what range of x values is the left side of the screen between? Yeah, 0 to 200. Okay. So would it be right to say that if I were to check and see if my mouse's x value is less than 200, then we're going to do something, right? If it's less than 200, then I'm going to do something because it's on the left side of the screen, right? So I'm going to use the less than sign, and I'm going to put that in my if, and I'm going to do this world and the world.mousex. So if the mouse's x value is less than 200, then I need to do something. Okay? Right? Because it gets to here, and now all of a sudden it's going to do something because the x value is less than 200. Yep, worldMouse.x is less than 200. That's what's going to go in my if. So it says set the visible property of each bee inside both the if and the else statements appropriately to make the bees only show near the flower. So we've got a new one now, a new sprite property. If we go under our sprites tab, this sprite.visible. So if I drop that in there, if we see here, I've got 3 bees, B1, 2, and 3. So I'm going to set B1's visible property equal to 1. 1 means that it's visible, 0 would mean that it's hidden. Okay, so B1.visible, and then I'm going to set B2.visible to equal 1, and B3.visible equal to 1. Okay, and then it says to make the bees only show near the flower. So if the mouse X value is less than 200, then they're going to be visible. But if it's not less than 200, then I don't want them to be visible. So I need to take this B1.visible and put it in my else as well and make it 0. So there's an easy way to do that. I can select, so click and drag and select over the top of these and just do the B1.visible 2 and 3. Press Control C and Control V, and then I can click and drag them. Control C, Control V, so copy and paste, and then I can just change these values to 0. Whoops. Okay, so now when I run, if my mouse is over here, it's not going to do anything, but as soon as it gets on this side of the screen, now the bees are there. If I go back, it's gone. Come back over, it's there. Nope. In the if, it's 1. In the if, the number is 1. In the else, the number is 0. And then make sure that you're changing your B number to B1, B2, and B3 in the if statement. Okay. All right, so go ahead and press finish there. Number 5, lesson 13, level 5. So let's see here. All right, we've got reverse the gears. The gears are back. They already spin one direction when you press the space bar. Now you want them to spin the other direction when the space bar isn't pressed. Make the gears spin opposite of the direction that they do when the space bar is pressed. So we've got this here, this if key down space, and then we've got this gear rotation here. So what we can do is we need to add an else. So we need to press this little plus by this on the bottom side of this blue if statement, and it'll add the else. Okay, that little plus down on the bottom there. Then I'm going to do the same thing that I did in the last assignment, and I'm going to copy these. I'm going to press Control C, and then I'm going to click down below this else, which it's not going to let me. And I'm going to press Control V, and I'm going to grab those 3 again, and I'm going to move them down below. That way I don't misspell anything. And then what I need to do is I need to change these to pluses and minuses. Well, I can't do that by keeping the block. And so what I'm going to do so that I don't have to take those blocks out and put them back in is I'm going to go to the text and just change it there. So I'm going to press this show text up in the top right. So up in the top right, it says show text. I'm going to press that, and it's going to turn it into text. And then after this else here on line 17, I'm just going to change any of the, so this one says minus. I'm going to get rid of that one and press plus. I'm going to go down to this plus and press minus. And then this plus, I'm going to change to a minus. So I'm just reversing the signs. Okay, I can't do that in the blocks without getting rid of this whole block all at once. Okay, so I'm leaving it, and then I'm just changing it in the text. And then I can press run. So now the gears are going one way. I press the space bar, they're going to go the other way. Does that make sense? All right, go ahead and press finish. That one's not the one that we're screenshotting. I know that one's purple. That's not the one that we're doing. All right, this level I'm not going to go over. Other than that, this is a great example here for you to review to see how this can be used. Okay, but this is a great level for you to go back to, lesson 13, level 6, in case any of the if-else's are confusing at all. You can go back to this and reference this example, or you can read up on the if-else and how it's structured, all sorts of stuff like that. So go ahead and press continue there. So we're on lesson 7, or lesson 13, level 7, okay? It says mouse X and Y. One of the simplest ways to take input is to just make a sprite follow the user's mouse position, okay? You can get the X and Y location of the mouse using world.mouseX and world.mousey. This follows the pattern you learned with the sprite properties. World is the name of the object, and mouse X and mouse Y are the names of the properties. Okay? So it says do this. You're going to make a B sprite follow the mouse around the game. The B image is already loaded in the animation tab for you. So it says create a B sprite that draws in the center of the window. Where do I go to create a B sprite? Sprites. Okay, what's the first line of code that I should put in? The what? Yep, the variable sprite. Okay, and it's a B, so I'm just going to name it B. And then I need to set the animation. So what do I do next? Yep, sprite.setAnimation underneath it, also naming it B. And then I need to click the drop down and and set it to that animation that's been made for me, this B animation. Okay, so that's how I create the sprite, those 2 lines of code. It's the first 2 in the sprite tab. Okay, so create a B sprite that draws in the center of the window. So we're creating it at 200, 200. So that's perfect. So we did that one. Inside the draw loop, update the position of the sprite to the position of the mouse. Set the X position of the sprite to the value of world.mouseX. Okay, so I'm going to do sprite.x, because that's how I set the B's X value, equal to the world.mouseX. That's how I do it. So I did the sprites, I did sprite.x equals, and then I did world.mouseX. Okay, and then I'm going to do sprite.y, name it b.y, and I'm going to set that equal to world.mousey. So that's under the world tab. Okay, run the program and test and see if it works. I haven't drawn my sprite yet, so I have to draw my sprite at the bottom here. Now it will work. Okay, but what's happening? What's wrong? What did I forget to do? What did I forget to do? If they're not going away, what did I forget? All right, so what did I forget here? Nope, I want the draw sprites in there so that it draws every time. What am I forgetting to put every time? What do I need to redraw so that the B goes away from the previous time? What's the light blue thing in the example? The background. Okay, so I go to my drawing. Background color should be the first thing in my draw function. I'm going to name it sky blue because that one works. And there it works. Okay, because every time through that draw loop, it needs to repaste the background, and then it resets the world.mouseX and world.mousey to the B's X and Y value. Okay? Go ahead and press finish there. All right. Other forms of inputs. Whoops. Actually, let's just leave this. Okay, now that you can make the bee follow the mouse, let's make a bee fly around the mouse as shown in the picture on the right. So it's going to kind of do this like little buzz thing. In order to do this, you need to add a random amount between 0 and 50 to the mouse X or Y. So I need to add a random amount between -50 and 50 to the mouse X and Y. So it says you already have a bee sprite that follows the mouse. Update the X and Y location to be randomly close to the mouse. Add a random number between -50 and 50 to the world mouse X and world mouse Y. Okay, so I need to add a random amount to this. So random number, whoops, pull this out. Random number, okay. And this needs to be, I'm going to subtract. So I've got -50. So I'm going to subtract inside the first one, and I'm going to add inside the second one. Okay, so get that set up first. So b.x equals random number, and then put a subtraction 1 in the first one and a plus in the second one. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this world.mousex, and I'm going to subtract 50. And I'm going to take the world.mousex again, and I'm going to add 50. What that's doing is it's saying I want to set the b's x value to a random number, but I want to use the current x value of the mouse and then subtract potentially anywhere between a -50 and a +50. Okay, so we're going to just do the first b. So I'm going to pull out this world.mousey and do the same thing with the y. So I'm putting in the random number, and then make sure that you grab the subtraction one first in the first one, and the addition one in the second one. Going to world, and then this time I'm doing the world.mousey this time. World.mousey, and then I've got 50 and 50. Okay, so what's going to happen here is it's taking the x value and the y value of the mouse, and then it's going to randomly pick between -50 and +50 and put that in b.x. Okay, so this might be a level that you reference back to so that you can see how this b is going to randomly shake. Okay, now this says add 3 more b's to the following so that it adds a swarm of bees. We're going to do that the easy way instead of the hard way. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to create my b variables. I'm going to rename this one b1. I'm going to name this one b1. This needs to be named b1. And this needs to be named b1. You can see it as soon as you name the first line b1, where your yellow triangles are the lines that you need to change it to b1. So our challenge said add 3 more bees that follow the mouse in the same way as to make a swarm of bees. So what we're going to do is I'm going to copy these first 2 lines of code. I'm going to drag over the top of them, press Control C. Whoops. Okay. Select them, Control C, press Control V 3 times. Okay, so I've got these. Left click and drag over the code that you want, and then press Control C to copy and Control V to paste. Then you're going to rename these lines. So the first one, or the second one, is B2. This one's B3. This one's B3. This one's B4. And this one is B4. Okay. As soon as you do that, so everybody do that first. Okay, so now that we have our B sprites made, listen up. Now that we have our B sprites made, okay, if I press run, like I said to you guys just a little bit ago, I have 3 B sprites that are sitting in the middle right now that aren't being randomly moved. So what I need to do is I need to copy these 2 lines of code, highlight them, Control C, go underneath, Control V, Control V, Control V. But then what I need to do is I need to just go 2 down, change it to B2, this one, B2, this X value one is B3, this one is B3, this one is B4, and this one is B4. Now when I press run, I've got 4 B's that are randomly swarming throughout my screen. Okay? So go ahead and press finish on that one. Going to level 9. Level 9. All right, it says make a prediction. So far we used key down as a way to let users control your programs, but that's just one of many ways to take input. In fact, just one of many ways to detect key presses. Depending on how you want to react to a key press, there are a few other blocks that you might want to use. Read the program and predict how it will happen when you press each of the up, down, left, and right arrows. After making your prediction, run the code and write down or share with your neighbor your observations. So, take a look. So at line 8, so it's going to print out, I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to print out either true or false. Okay. On line 8, it says key down up. What's going to happen? So I'm obviously using the up arrow. If I press the up arrow, what's going to print out, true or false? What's going to print out? Line 8, take a look. If I press down the up arrow, what's going to print out? True. If I'm not pressing it down, then what's going to be printing? False. Okay. Line 10. Line 10, it says exclamation mark, which means not. Okay. Not key down. So the down arrow key, what this is saying here is the arrow key, the down arrow key is not being pressed. So if the down arrow key is not being pressed, what's going to print out? True. And then if it is being pressed down, it's going to print out false. So the opposite of line 8. Okay. This one says on line 12, key went down left. So what's going to happen? It's going to print out false all the time until what happens? Read what's in the yellow. On 12, the key went down. So as soon as the left key went down, it's going to print out true only when it went down. And then as soon as it lets up, it's not printing out true at all anymore. It's printing out just false. Okay? And then the same thing for line 14, but the opposite. When it's being let up, it's printing out true. Okay? So press run and see what happens. So we've got this true, false with those, and then went down and went up for these. Okay, so make your predictions there and go ahead and press finish. The next one is a little quiz, I think. Yep, so go ahead and answer those ones and then press continue to level 11. And then I will meet you here when you've got your predictions done for the last one and the answers for the other one. Okay? All right. This one says mouse clicks. Key presses are great, but sometimes you want the users to interact through mouse clicks. There's this new block called mouse down, which, similar to key down, checks whether the left or right mouse buttons are being pressed. If you are using a computer with a mouse or trackpad that only has one button, you'll want to always use mouse down left. Okay, there's a program that drops a balloon down the screen. You're going to program the mouse button to raise the balloon back up when it is clicked. Add an if-else statement that checks for mouse down. Inside the conditional, move the balloon up 1 pixel if the mouse is down. Otherwise, move the balloon down. Okay, so I'm going to go to my control, and I'm going to grab an if-else statement out, and I'm going to put it underneath here. Okay, if the left mouse button is being pressed down. So I'm going to go to my world, and I'm going to take a look for that. So I look for mouse down button. I'm going to put that in my if statement. If the left button of my mouse is down. So I'm going to leave it as is because that's what's automatically put in there. Okay, if the mouse down left button is pressed. Okay, we get that part so far? Okay. Inside the conditional, move the balloon up 1 pixel if the mouse is down. Is up on the y-axis adding to the y or subtracting? If I go up, it's doing what to the y? Subtracting, right? So I need to take this balloon.y equals balloon.y plus, and I need to change that to minus. Well, let's not make it so complicated on ourselves, because what it says is if you want, so it says, in the conditional, move the balloon up 1 pixel for mouse down, which is what's going to go in the if. Otherwise, move the balloon down. So this is going to go in the else. Okay, so put this statement in the else, and then copy it and paste it here, and then change this to a minus by going to the show text. Okay, go to the show text, and I change this to a minus, and go back to my blocks. It's done. Okay, so again, okay, I moved this balloon.y equals balloon.y plus 1 into the else. I selected it. I pressed Control C. I pressed Control V up here, and you can always move it to paste. And then I went to my show text, and I changed it in the else, the very first one, to minus. Then I go back to show blocks, and it changes it back. Now when I press run, it's going to drop unless I left click with my mouse. Now there's a way to cheat this game, and it's literally holding down your mouse button on the left, and it'll raise it up, but that's not as fun. It's all about clicking, and can you beat it? Okay, or if you think you're getting beat, you can just hold down the mouse button and that beats it. Okay, now it says challenge, can you make the balloon drift randomly to the left and right as it rises and falls? We're not going to do that challenge. So go ahead and press finish. Nope, the first one was minus, the second one is plus. First one's minus in the if, second one is plus in the else. Okay? So this one here, so take a look. It says other forms of input. Responding to a single click. So earlier we learned that key went down and key went up can be used to respond to a key press a single time. The blocks mouse went up and mouse went down allow you to do that for the mouse. So it says do this. Let's make a simple game that counts how many times you've clicked. We've already provided a variable called clicks that you can use to track how many times the user has clicked. Add a conditional that checks if the mouse went down. So I'm going to go to my control, and I'm just going to start out with the if statement because it just says conditional, not an if else. So if we're checking, adding a conditional that checks if the mouse went down. So if, go to World tab, mouse went down, I'm going to leave it as left button. So if the mouse went down, the mouse button went down. And then it says inside your conditional, add to the clicks variable. So what I need to do is I'm going to go to my variables tab, the purple tab. We haven't been here very often. Okay, but I'm going to do this x equals blank, and I'm going to put that in there. Okay, in my if, and I need to do my x is going to be changed to the word clicks because that's what my variable name is up here on line 1. Okay, so clicks is equal to clicks plus 1. So I need to go to my Yep, thank you. I was blanking. Clicks plus 1. Okay, so I press run. I left click. If I left click, it's adding 1 to it and printing it out to the screen. If I don't do anything, it's not adding anything at all. Okay, it says challenge. Can you add a sprite that responds to the mouse went down as well? Add an image of your choice and increase the sprite's size each time the mouse is clicked. Okay, so I'm going to press reset, and I need to add a sprite. So I'm going to go to my animation tab. So everybody go to your animation tab and click and add in any of the preset animations. I'm going to add in some food. I saw some, pizza. I want some watermelon. Watermelon. Okay, and I'm going to name it, just name it watermelon. okay, because it's got sliced underscore watermelon underscore 1. So I'm just going to name it watermelon. It's on page 2. Okay. Then what I need to do is remember when we're creating our sprites, we need to add in these first two lines, lines from our sprites tab. So I need to add in both of those. Okay, and I'm going to name it melon. And I'm going to create it. I don't want it to be created in the middle because that's where my numbers are counting. I want to create it in the top right. So I'm going to create it at 7575. So I'm going to change the create sprite to 7575. And then I need to name my line 3 to melon and set the animation to watermelon. Okay, so I added these two lines in the sprites tab, gave my sprite a variable name, which was melon, and then I created it in the top left, which was 7575, and then I set the animation to watermelon, to what I stated. Okay? Now what I need to do now, after I've created my variable, is it says in the instructions, okay, add an image of your choice and increase the sprite's size each time the mouse is clicked. How do I affect the sprite's size? What is that? Sprite.what? Sprite.scale. Okay, so in this if statement, I want to do this sprite.scale equals sprite.scale plus, because I need it to increase. Okay, so I need to do sprite.scale equals, and then go to my plus, sprite.scale plus, and we're going to do a small amount, 0.01. Okay, because that actually changes it quite a bit. I need to change my sprite.scale to melon.scale on both of these. And then, now when I press run, whoops, got to draw my sprite, otherwise it won't happen. That goes outside of your if loop on the very, very bottom. Okay, so my watermelon is there. I press add, and it's going to cover up my number. Okay, it's supposed to get bigger every time I click. Okay, if I see this here and I don't want it to happen like that, I can move my text to somewhere else, because right now it's being created at 165, 175. I can move it down here to like 325, 325. That way it's out of the way. And now I can just add, and I can make my watermelon massive by left clicking. Okay. If your watermelon's not showing up, make sure that you add that draw sprite underneath and outside of your if statement, but inside your draw function. Okay. So the next one here is the one that we're going to be screenshotting. Yep. So lesson 13, level 13. So mouse did move. We can also use Boolean expressions to check whether or not the mouse has moved. The mouse did move block will return false if the mouse is still, but true if the mouse has been moving. Right now, this program displays a salt shaker sprite, and you'll need to use the mouse did move so that you can shake the salt by moving the mouse back and forth. Add a conditional that checks if the mouse did move. So, perfect. We're going to add an if statement underneath this comment, and then I'm going to drag in the mouse did move into that if statement, okay, because that's what we're checking. Did the mouse move? If the conditional is true, rotate the salt sprite randomly to the left or right. Okay, so right now it's at 150. I'm going to, if the salt shaker, we want it to rotate, we're going to change that salt. I'm thinking I want to change the X value, but I might not want to. Let's try this. Sprite.rotation equals, and then let's put in a random number between 130 and 170. Let's rotate it by 20 each way, because right now it's the salts.rotation is set to 150. So I need to change this to salt. Okay. Okay, so what's going to happen is if the mouse moves, it's going to shake this salt left to right. 130, 170 is the random number. Okay? Because we see up at the top here on line 3 that the salt dot rotation is set to 150. So if the mouse is moving, it's going to randomly pick a number between 130 and 170 and set that rotation to it. Okay, so if the mouse is moving, it's not shaking. I move the mouse, it's going to start shaking the salt. Okay? The challenge, however, is saying, can you keep track of how many times the salt or the mouse did move shakes the salt, and then rotate it right side up after 100 shakes? Okay, so first thing we need to do, let's break that down. Can you keep track of how many times the mouse did move shakes the salt? Let's do that first. So we need to set up a variable like we just did in the last level for clicks, but this time it's going to be for shakes. Okay, so I'm going to create a variable so that I can keep track of that count. So I'm going to do variable x equals blank. In the variables tab, we're going to declare a counter variable and set it equal to 0. So I'm going to grab this variable, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to name it shakes, because it's our mouse shakes. Okay, and I'm going to set it equal to 0 right off the bat. Okay, the variable is set. It's set to 0. Okay, now it said, so we need to track that. So if the mouse is moving, then we need our shakes variable to count up by 1, right? Every time that the mouse moves. So what I'm going to do is inside here, I'm going to do that shakes equals shakes plus 1. Okay, so I'm going to do x equals blank from our variables tab here, and say shakes equals, and then I need to do my math, my plus, equals shakes plus 1. Okay, but that's not going to print out because I don't have it being printed. So what I need to do is I need to go to my drawing and I need to print out that as text. Okay, so this text string xy is going to print it out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that underneath there. Now, very, very, very important. Okay, inside this text string here, highlight everything and press delete. Okay, the very first one that says in quotes, it says text. Highlight all of it and press your delete key or your backspace key to make that one blank. So it should be text, and then in your parentheses, it should be blank 015 right now. Everybody got that so far? Okay. What we need to do, because if it was in double quotes, if you keep the double quotes, what's going to happen is this. Okay, don't do this. Let me show you what's going to happen. If I type in shakes in the double quotes, what's going to happen instead of it printing out how it's supposed to? It's going to print out the word shakes up here at the top. I don't want the word, I want the number. That's why I have to get rid of the double quotes. So I just type in shakes with no quotes around it. Now it's going to print out the variable. Okay? Okay, so it needs to be just shakes, but I'm going to move it down a little bit. That way it doesn't get stuck up in the corner there. So I'm going to move it to 70, 70. 70, 70. It's going to kind of bring it out a little bit. Okay, so now if I press run, it's counting up there. Okay, but I want it to be a little bit bigger. And I actually don't need it in this if statement. So pull that outside of the if statement. We don't want it in there because that way, so watch what happens. So if I leave it in there and I do my shakes and my mouse is moving, as soon as I stop shaking my mouse, the number is going to go away. I don't want that. I want the number to stay there. Okay, because right now my mouse isn't moving, so we're outside of that if statement. And right now the text showing up is inside the if statement. Does that make sense? Okay, so I need to move this text outside of that if statement underneath it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a fill color and I'm going to change it to black. And then I'm going to make the text size, there's a text size in there, and I'm going to change it to 24. So now what's going to happen is it's going to count, it's going to be black, it's going to be bigger, and then even if I stop, it's going to stay showing because it's outside of that if statement. Okay. I'm going to move mine down to the bottom here, so that way it looks like it's showing down below here. I'm going to move it to 275, 275 instead of 70, 70. So now it's down here. Okay. And then the very last thing that the challenge is telling us to do is saying, and then after we reach 100 shakes, we want to rotate it right side up. Okay. So we're going to put in a separate if statement. So we're going to go to control and put in a separate if statement underneath the last one that says if shakes is equal to if shakes is greater than or equal to 100 shakes, then we're going to rotate it, set the salt.rotation equal to 0. Okay? So again, if shakes is greater than or equal to 100, we want to set the sprite.rotation, which is salt.rotation, equal to 0. Straight up and down. Because if I go to my animation, the salt shaker is naturally straight up and down, so that would be at rotation 0, not turning at all. So now I press run. Watch. I press run. Shakes to 100, and then it's going to set it at 0, which is exactly what I want. Okay. Yep, I will freeze the screen here so that you can see it. Okay, this is what I want turned into Google Classroom, please. Okay, that is the end of lesson 13, level 13. Please turn that one into Google Classroom, all right?